Question 1. Quality control measures reveal inconsistencies in the printing and distribution of examination papers for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance examination, potentially affecting the integrity of certain question sets. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the Examination Oversight Committee? Option A. Initiate a thorough review of the quality control reports, cross-referencing them with examination administration logs and candidate seating arrangements to identify the scope and impact of the printing and distribution anomalies, and consult the Anhui University of Science and Technology's official examination regulations for guidance on handling such discrepancies. Option B. Immediately invalidate the entire examination for all candidates due to the potential for widespread compromise. Option C. Instruct all examination invigilators to verbally confirm the accuracy of their distributed papers with candidates before commencing the test. Option D. Proceed with the examination as scheduled, assuming the inconsistencies are minor and unlikely to significantly impact candidate performance. Correct answer is A. Initiate a thorough review of the quality control reports, cross-referencing them with examination administration logs and candidate seating arrangements to identify the scope and impact of the printing and distribution anomalies, and consult the Anhui University of Science and Technology's official examination regulations for guidance on handling such discrepancies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the practicalities of managing a large-scale entrance examination. The pressure to maintain high standards while ensuring fairness and efficiency for a significant number of applicants necessitates careful judgment. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and rectifying potential breaches of examination regulations without compromising the validity of the entire process or unfairly disadvantaging candidates. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation of the identified irregularities. This means meticulously reviewing the examination materials, candidate responses, and any relevant administrative records to establish the nature and extent of the quality control issues. Following this, a fair and transparent process for addressing the findings must be implemented, which may include communication with relevant examination officials. If necessary, appropriate disciplinary actions or re-examination procedures as stipulated by Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance examination regulations. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible as it upholds the principles of fairness, accuracy, and adherence to established rules, thereby preserving the credibility of the entrance examination. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the quality control findings without thorough investigation. This fails to address potential systemic weaknesses in the examination process and could lead to the admission of unqualified candidates or the rejection of deserving ones, undermining the fairness of the selection process. Another incorrect approach would be to implement immediate, broad-scale punitive measures without a proper investigation. This could unfairly penalize innocent candidates and damage the university's reputation for impartiality. Third incorrect approach would be to ignore the findings and proceed with the examination results as planned. This constitutes a dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the integrity of the academic selection process, potentially leading to long-term negative consequences for the university's academic standards. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established university regulations and ethical principles. This involves 1. Acknowledging and documenting the quality control findings. 2. Initiating a thorough, objective investigation based on evidence. 3. Consulting relevant university policies and guidelines for examination management and integrity. 4. Determining appropriate remedial actions based on the investigation's outcome and regulatory requirements. 5. Communicating findings and actions transparently to relevant stakeholders, ensuring fairness to all candidates. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that the current examination scheduling system for Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exams is experiencing significant logistical strain, leading to occasional delays and increased administrative costs. A proposal has been put forth to streamline the scheduling by consolidating examination centers and reducing the number of available examination dates. What is the most appropriate initial step to evaluate this proposal? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to analyze the potential effects of consolidated centers and reduce dates on candidate accessibility, fairness, and the overall integrity of the examination process, consulting relevant academic and administrative departments. Option B. Immediately implement the proposed changes to reduce administrative costs and improve operational efficiency, as cost savings are a primary objective for institutional improvement. Option C. Proceed with the consolidation of examination centers and reduction of dates without further review, assuming that efficiency gains will automatically translate to a better examination experience for all. Option D. Prioritize the reduction of administrative costs by implementing the proposed changes and address any candidate concerns that may arise after the implementation. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to analyze the potential effects of consolidated centers and reduce dates on candidate accessibility, fairness, and the overall integrity of the examination process, consulting relevant academic and administrative departments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of its entrance examination process. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring fairness and preventing any undue advantage or disadvantage to candidates, which is paramount in academic admissions. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate potential biases or procedural flaws without compromising the examination's validity. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment of the proposed changes on all stakeholders, particularly the prospective students. This assessment must consider how the changes might affect accessibility, fairness, and the overall comparability of examination results. Specifically, it aligns with the principles of equitable assessment and transparent admissions policies, which are implicitly expected within the regulatory framework governing university entrance examinations in China, including those overseen by Anhui University of Science and Technology. The goal is to ensure that any modifications serve to enhance the examination's effectiveness and fairness, rather than introduce new forms of disparity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without considering the impact on examination fairness would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to uphold the ethical obligation to provide a level playing field for all applicants. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over a comprehensive review of potential consequences would also be flawed. This overlooks the critical need for due diligence in matters affecting academic integrity and candidate rights. A third incorrect approach that involves making changes without consulting relevant academic or administrative bodies responsible for examination oversight would violate established procedural guidelines and potentially undermine the authority of those charged with maintaining examination standards. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the objectives of any proposed change. This should be followed by a systematic assessment of potential impacts, considering both intended and unintended consequences. Consultation with relevant stakeholders and adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines are crucial steps. Finally, a decision should be made based on a comprehensive evaluation of the evidence, prioritizing fairness, integrity, and the long-term reputation of the institution. Question 3. Operational review demonstrates that the Anhui University of Science and Technology is considering implementing a new AI-powered proctoring system for its entrance examinations to enhance monitoring and deter academic misconduct. Before proceeding with this significant technological shift, what is the most crucial step to ensure the examination's fairness and integrity? Option A. Prioritize the cost-effectiveness of the AI proctoring system, assuming that any technological advancements inherently improve the examination process without requiring extensive prior evaluation. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the AI proctoring system on examination fairness, accessibility for all candidates, and the overall validity of the assessment, aligning with national guidelines for higher education entrance examinations. Option C. Rely solely on the technical specifications provided by the AI proctoring system vendor to confirm its suitability for the university's entrance examinations, without conducting an independent review of its potential impact. Option D. Proceed with the implementation of the AI proctoring system immediately, based on the vendor's assurances of its advanced capabilities in detecting cheating, to leverage its efficiency benefits. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the potential effects of the AI proctoring system on examination fairness, accessibility for all candidates, and the overall validity of the assessment, aligning with national guidelines for higher education entrance examinations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance the university's operational efficiency with the integrity of its entrance examination process. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring fairness and preventing any undue advantage or disadvantage to candidates, which is paramount in maintaining public trust and adhering to the principles of academic assessment. Careful judgment is required to identify and mitigate potential biases or procedural flaws. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective impact assessment of the proposed changes on the examination's fairness and validity. This means systematically evaluating how the new technology might affect different candidate groups, the security of the examination, and the overall comparability of results. This approach is justified by the Anhui University of Science and Technology's commitment to equitable access and merit-based admissions, as outlined in its internal regulations, and the broader guidelines for higher education entrance examinations in China, which emphasize transparency, fairness, and the prevention of any form of academic misconduct. The goal is to ensure that the examination remains a reliable measure of a candidate's aptitude and knowledge, free from technological or procedural disruptions that could compromise its integrity. An incorrect approach would be to implement the new technology without a comprehensive impact assessment. This failure to proactively identify potential issues could lead to unintended consequences, such as technological glitches, disproportionately affecting certain candidates, or creating new avenues for cheating. Such an oversight would violate the ethical obligation to provide a level playing field for all applicants and could contravene specific directives from the Ministry of Education regarding the standardization and fairness of national and provincial entrance examinations. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost savings or perceived efficiency gains over the potential negative impacts on examination integrity. This would represent a significant ethical lapse, as the primary objective of an entrance examination is to assess candidates fairly, not to optimize operational costs at the expense of equity. This approach would disregard the fundamental principles of academic integrity and could lead to reputational damage for the university and potential sanctions from regulatory bodies. A further incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the vendor's assurances regarding the technology's reliability without independent verification. While vendor expertise is valuable, the university bears the ultimate responsibility for the examination's conduct. A failure to conduct an independent impact assessment, considering the specific context of the Anhui University of Science and Technology's examination environment, would be a dereliction of duty and could expose the university to risks of examination irregularities. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk assessment framework. This begins with identifying potential changes or new implementations, followed by a thorough analysis of their potential impacts on all stakeholders, particularly candidates. The next step is to evaluate the likelihood and severity of these impacts, considering relevant university policies and national educational regulation. Based on this assessment, mitigation strategies should be developed and implemented, with continuous monitoring to ensure their effectiveness. This systematic and proactive approach ensures that decisions are grounded in fairness, integrity, and compliance with all applicable guidelines. Question 4. The control framework reveals that an admissions officer at Anhui University of Science and Technology has received an application from a candidate whose parent is a significant donor to the university. While the candidate's academic record and entrance exam scores are within the acceptable range, they are not among the top-tier scores. The admissions officer is aware of the parent's influence and the potential for increased donations if the candidate is admitted. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer to ensure adherence to the university's admission policies and ethical standards? Option A. Inform the candidate's parent that while their child's application is being considered, a donation would significantly improve the chances of admission. Option B. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the published admission criteria for Anhui University of Science and Technology, ensuring all aspects of their application are assessed impartially against these standards. And if the candidate meets the criteria, proceed with the admission process without regard to external influence. Option C. Recommend the candidate for admission based on their potential to contribute to the university's financial resources, suggesting that their academic performance can be supported through university programs after admission. Option D. Advocate for the candidate's admission to the admissions committee, highlighting the potential benefits to the university from the donor parent, even if the candidate's scores are not exceptionally high. The correct answer is B. Evaluate the candidate strictly based on the published admission criteria for Anhui University of Science and Technology, ensuring all aspects of their application are assessed impartially against these standards. And if the candidate meets the criteria, proceed with the admission process without regard to external influence. Explanation: the control framework reveals a common challenge in university admissions, balancing the desire to attract talented students with the imperative to maintain academic integrity and fairness. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an admissions officer to navigate potential conflicts of interest and uphold the established evaluation criteria of Anhui University of Science and Technology. The pressure to meet enrollment targets or to favor candidates with connections can create ethical dilemmas. The correct approach involves a rigorous and impartial evaluation of all applicants based solely on the published admission criteria, which would include academic records, entrance exam scores, and any other officially sanctioned assessment methods for Anhui University of Science and Technology. This adheres to the principles of fairness, transparency, and meritocracy fundamental to academic institutions. Specifically, it aligns with the university's stated commitment to selecting candidates who demonstrate the highest potential for academic success, as determined by objective measures. This approach ensures that the selection process is defensible and upholds the reputation of the university. An incorrect approach would be to deviate from the established admission criteria to accommodate a candidate with a personal connection, even if that candidate's qualifications are borderline. This action would undermine the integrity of the admissions process and could lead to the admission of less qualified students, potentially impacting the academic environment. It also creates an unfair advantage for one applicant over others who have met the standard requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize meeting enrollment quotas over the academic merit of applicants. While enrollment targets are important for university operations, they should not supersede the fundamental principle of admitting students based on their ability to succeed academically. This could lead to a dilution of academic standards and a negative impact on the university's reputation. A third incorrect approach would be to disregard the entrance examination results for a candidate due to perceived extenuating circumstances, without a formal, documented process for such exceptions as defined by Anhui University of Science and Technology's regulations. Unilateral decisions to bypass established evaluation components without proper authorization or a clear policy compromise the fairness and consistency of the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admission policies and procedures. When faced with a potentially compromising situation, a professional should first consult the official guidelines. If ambiguity exists, or if a conflict of interest is perceived, the next step is to escalate the matter to a supervisor or the relevant admissions committee for guidance and a decision that aligns with institutional policy and ethical standards. Transparency and documentation of all decisions are crucial. Question 5. The efficiency study reveals that certain research project accounts at Anhui University of Science and Technology have experienced significant budget overruns and unexpected fund transfers between departments, raising questions about adherence to the university's financial management guidelines for research grants. Which of the following actions best aligns with the university's regulatory framework for addressing such financial anomalies? Option A. Focus the investigation solely on the departments that have historically received less funding, assuming they are more likely to be mismanaging their resources. Option B. Immediately suspend all research activities for the departments involved until a full explanation for the financial discrepancies can be provided by the department heads. Option C. Accept the department head's initial verbal assurances that the overruns and transfers were necessary for ongoing research and require no further documentation. Option D. Initiate a formal, impartial audit of the affected project accounts, cross-referencing all expenditures and transfers against approved budgets and university financial policies, and consult with the university's internal audit department for guidance. The correct answer is D. Initiate a formal, impartial audit of the affected project accounts, cross-referencing all expenditures and transfers against approved budgets and university financial policies, and consult with the university's internal audit department for guidance. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals potential discrepancies in the allocation of research funding within Anhui University of Science and Technology's academic departments. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the university's internal financial regulations, ethical guidelines for research conduct, and potentially national academic integrity standards. The challenge lies in balancing the need for transparency and accountability with the protection of academic freedom and departmental autonomy. A hasty or biased judgment could lead to unfair accusations, damage reputations, and disrupt valuable research activities. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's established financial audit procedures and research ethics policies. This means gathering all relevant documentation, interviewing key personnel from affected departments and the finance office, and comparing the findings against the university's approved budget allocations and expenditure guidelines. The justification for this approach is rooted in the university's commitment to good governance, financial probity, and the integrity of its research enterprise, as outlined in its internal regulations. Adhering to these procedures ensures fairness, accuracy, and compliance, thereby upholding the trust placed in the university by its stakeholders. An incorrect approach would be to immediately flag the departments based on preliminary findings without a comprehensive review. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of legitimate explanations for funding variations, such as approved budget reallocations, unforeseen research costs, or differences in reporting timelines. Such an approach violates the principle of due process and could lead to premature disciplinary actions, damaging the careers of researchers and administrators. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the findings outright, assuming that departmental autonomy overrides any need for financial scrutiny. This disregards the university's responsibility to ensure responsible stewardship of its resources and to maintain academic integrity. It also ignores the potential for genuine mismanagement or even misconduct, which could have serious consequences for the university's reputation and funding. A third incorrect approach involves selectively investigating only those departments that are perceived as less influential or politically connected. This demonstrates bias and a failure to uphold the principle of equal treatment under the university's regulations. It undermines the credibility of any investigation and can lead to a perception of unfairness, fostering distrust within the academic community. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic, evidence-based approach. First, clearly define the scope of the investigation based on the initial findings and relevant university policies. Second, gather all pertinent documentation and data. Third, conduct interviews with all relevant parties in a neutral and objective manner. Fourth, analyze the collected information against established university regulations and ethical standards. Finally, formulate conclusions and recommendations based solely on the evidence, ensuring that all findings are well supported and that any proposed actions are proportionate and in line with university policy. Question 6. Strategic planning requires Anhui University of Science and Technology to consider how to best attract a diverse range of talented students. If the admissions committee identifies a need to increase representation from certain underrepresented regions, which of the following actions aligns with the regulatory framework for the university's entrance examination? Option A. Proposing a formal amendment to the entrance examination regulations to include a weighted consideration for candidates from specific underrepresented regions, subject to approval by the relevant academic and administrative bodies. Option B. Adjusting the final admission scores of candidates from underrepresented regions after the examination results are published, based on diversity metrics. Option C. Creating a separate, less rigorous examination for candidates from underrepresented regions to ensure higher pass rates. Option D. Informally advising examiners to give slightly higher marks to candidates from identified underrepresented regions to meet diversity goals. The correct answer is A. proposing a formal amendment to the entrance examination regulations to include a weighted consideration for candidates from specific underrepresented regions, subject to approval by the relevant academic and administrative bodies. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because the admissions committee at Anhui University of Science and Technology must balance the university's strategic goals of attracting diverse talent with the imperative to adhere strictly to the established entrance examination regulations. Misinterpreting or circumventing these regulations, even with good intentions, can lead to accusations of unfairness, compromise the integrity of the admissions process, and potentially violate the spirit and letter of the Anhui University of Science and Technology's own examination guidelines. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any strategic adjustments remain within the defined legal and regulatory boundaries of the entrance examination. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict application of the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance examination regulations. This means evaluating candidates solely based on the criteria and scoring mechanisms explicitly outlined in the official examination framework. Any deviation, such as introducing subjective elements not prescribed by the regulations or altering scoring thresholds without formal amendment to the rules, would be a direct violation. The regulatory framework for university entrance examinations in China, including those at Anhui University of Science and Technology, emphasizes fairness, transparency, and meritocracy. Therefore, adhering to the established rules is not just a procedural requirement, but an ethical and legal obligation to maintain the credibility of the institution and the fairness of the selection process. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize perceived strategic advantages over regulatory compliance. For instance, attempting to boost the scores of candidates from specific regions or backgrounds to meet diversity targets without any basis in the examination regulations constitutes a failure to uphold the integrity of the examination. This action directly contravenes the principle of equal opportunity and merit-based selection, which are foundational to educational admissions. Another incorrect approach would be to unilaterally decide to waive certain examination components for a select group of applicants based on external factors not recognized by the regulations. This undermines the standardized nature of the entrance exam and creates an uneven playing field, violating the principle of fairness and potentially leading to legal challenges regarding discriminatory practices. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive review of all applicable regulations and guidelines governing the entrance examination. This framework should then involve a clear assessment of the proposed action against these established rules. If a strategic objective appears to conflict with existing regulations, the appropriate course of action is to seek formal clarification or propose amendments to the regulations through the designated institutional channels, rather than to interpret or bypass them. The decision-making process must prioritize adherence to the law and ethical principles of fairness and transparency above all else. Question 7. Upon reviewing the application materials for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance examination, a faculty member notices that a candidate, whose family has a long-standing relationship with the university's administration, appears to have a slightly lower score on a preliminary assessment than is typically required for admission. The faculty member is aware that this candidate has expressed significant enthusiasm for the university's specialized engineering programs. What is the most appropriate course of action for the faculty member to take, strictly adhering to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance examination regulations and ethical guidelines? Option A. Recommend to the admissions committee that the candidate's application be flagged for a more thorough review, focusing on their overall profile and potential contributions to the university, even if their initial score is borderline. Option B. Suggest to the admissions committee that the candidate be given an opportunity to retake a portion of the examination to demonstrate their capabilities, without disclosing the family connection. Option C. Inform the candidate's family that, while the candidate's enthusiasm is noted, admission is solely based on the objective performance in the entrance examination as per university regulations. Option D. Advocate for the candidate's admission by highlighting their enthusiasm and potential, suggesting a review of their application for special consideration outside the standard scoring rubric. The correct answer is D. Advocate for the candidate's admission by highlighting their enthusiasm and potential, suggesting a review of their application for special consideration outside the standard scoring rubric. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve positive outcomes for prospective students. The entrance examination for Anhui University of Science and Technology is a critical juncture, and any deviation from established protocols can have significant consequences for both the institution and the applicants. Careful judgment is required to uphold the fairness and credibility of the examination process. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the official examination guidelines and regulations set forth by Anhui University of Science and Technology. This means ensuring that all applicants are assessed based on their own merits and abilities, without any external influence or preferential treatment. This approach is justified by the fundamental ethical principles of fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity, which are paramount in any educational admission process. Upholding these principles ensures that the university admits students who are genuinely qualified and capable of succeeding in their studies, thereby maintaining the academic standards and reputation of the institution. An incorrect approach would be to consider providing assistance or preferential treatment to a student based on personal connections or perceived potential. This action would violate the university's examination regulations and compromise the integrity of the admission process. Such a failure would undermine the principle of meritocracy, potentially admitting less qualified candidates and disadvantaging deserving applicants. Ethically, it represents a breach of trust and a dereliction of professional duty to maintain a fair and impartial selection process. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant's concerns about the examination's fairness without proper investigation. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the applicant's rights and the university's responsibility to ensure a just examination. Ethically, this failure to investigate could lead to a perception of institutional bias or negligence, damaging the university's reputation and potentially leading to formal complaints or appeals. The professional reasoning framework for such situations involves a systematic evaluation of the situation against established rules and ethical codes. First, one must identify the core issue and the relevant regulations. Second, consider the potential consequences of different actions on all stakeholders, including the applicant, the university, and other candidates. Third, prioritize adherence to the official guidelines and ethical principles of fairness and integrity. Finally, document all decisions and actions taken to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 8. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of applicants for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam experience high levels of stress and anxiety. During the examination, a fellow applicant discreetly offers you a small, pre-written note containing formulas that might be useful for a particular section of the exam. You have not memorized these specific formulas, but you recognize their potential to improve your score. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Politely decline the offer and continue with the exam using only your own knowledge and preparation. Option B. Signal to the invigilator that another applicant is attempting to cheat. Option C. Accept the note and inform the invigilator about the offer immediately after the exam concludes. Option D. Discreetly accept the note and attempt to use the formulas without being noticed. Correct answer is A. Politely decline the offer and continue with the exam using only your own knowledge and preparation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to navigate the ethical considerations and regulatory expectations surrounding academic integrity and fair competition during a university entrance examination. The core of the challenge lies in balancing the desire to perform well with the obligation to adhere to the examination's rules and principles of honesty. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate preparation and unethical shortcuts. The correct approach involves prioritizing adherence to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's examination regulations and the broader ethical principles of academic integrity. This means relying solely on the knowledge and skills acquired through legitimate study and preparation, without seeking or utilizing any unauthorized assistance. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the regulatory framework of university entrance exams, which are designed to assess individual merit and ensure a fair playing field for all candidates. Upholding these principles is paramount to the credibility of the examination process and the institution itself. An incorrect approach would be to seek or accept assistance from external sources during the examination. This directly violates the rules of academic integrity and the specific regulations governing the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam, which implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized aid. Such actions undermine the fairness of the examination, devalue the achievements of honest candidates, and can lead to severe academic penalties, including disqualification and damage to one's academic record. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the possibility of such assistance being offered, thereby passively allowing an unfair advantage to potentially be gained. This demonstrates a lack of vigilance and a failure to uphold the ethical standards expected of an examination candidate. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes ethical awareness, regulatory compliance, and personal integrity. This involves understanding the rules and expectations of the situation, evaluating potential actions against these standards, and choosing the path that upholds honesty and fairness, even if it means foregoing a perceived short-term advantage. In an examination context, this translates to self-reliance and a commitment to demonstrating one's own abilities. Question 9. The audit findings indicate several instances where examination invigilators at Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance examination did not strictly adhere to the prescribed protocol for verifying candidate identification, with some instances involving the acceptance of alternative forms of identification not explicitly listed in the official examination guidelines. What is the most appropriate course of action for the auditor? Option A. Overlook these minor deviations, assuming they did not significantly affect the examination's integrity, to maintain a positive audit report for the university. Option B. Focus solely on the financial aspects of the examination process and disregard procedural irregularities related to candidate verification. Option C. Document the discrepancies. Assess their potential impact on examination fairness based on university regulations and national educational policies, and report findings with recommendations for procedural improvement. Option D. Immediately flag these instances as critical breaches of protocol and recommend the invalidation of all examinations overseen by the implicated invigilators. The correct answer is C. Document the discrepancies. Assess their potential impact on examination fairness based on university regulations and national educational policies, and report findings with recommendations for procedural improvement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the potential conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable audit outcomes. The auditor must navigate the university's internal policies and the broader regulatory expectations for academic institutions in China, specifically as they pertain to Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance examination processes. The core of the challenge lies in discerning whether the identified discrepancies represent minor procedural oversights or systemic issues that could compromise the fairness and validity of the entrance examination, thereby impacting the university's reputation and the legitimacy of student admissions. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective, and evidence-based assessment of the audit findings. This requires the auditor to meticulously document the nature and extent of the discrepancies, cross-reference them against the established examination regulations and procedural guidelines of Anhui University of Science and Technology, and determine if any violations have occurred. If violations are identified, the auditor must then assess their materiality and potential impact on the examination's integrity. The ultimate goal is to provide a factual report that allows for informed decision-making by university leadership, adhering to the principles of transparency and accountability expected within the Chinese educational regulatory framework. This aligns with the overarching goal of ensuring the fairness and credibility of the university's admissions process, as mandated by national educational policies and university-specific regulations. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the findings without proper investigation, especially if there is a perceived pressure to present a clean audit report. This would violate the auditor's professional duty to report truthfully and comprehensively, potentially masking significant issues that could have long-term consequences for the university and its students. Another incorrect approach would be to overreact to minor procedural deviations and immediately recommend drastic measures without considering their proportionality or impact. This could lead to unnecessary disruption and damage to the university's operations and reputation. Failing to apply sound professional judgment. A third incorrect approach would be to allow personal biases or external influences to sway the interpretation of the findings, compromising the objectivity and independence required of an auditor. This directly contravenes ethical guidelines for professional conduct within academic auditing. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence gathering, objective analysis, and adherence to established regulations and ethical principles. This involves clearly defining the scope of the audit, systematically collecting and verifying information, consulting relevant university policies and national educational guidelines, and documenting all findings and conclusions meticulously. When faced with ambiguous situations, seeking clarification from relevant authorities or senior colleagues within the university's governance structure is crucial. The focus should always be on upholding the integrity of the process and providing recommendations that are fair, proportionate, and aligned with the overarching goals of academic excellence and fairness. Question 10. Examination of the data shows that an applicant for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam has submitted academic transcripts with a significant grade variation in a core subject across different semesters, raising questions about the consistency of their academic performance. What is the most appropriate next step for the admissions committee? Option A. Contact the applicant's previous institution to inquire about the reasons for the grade variation without informing the applicant. Option B. Request a detailed explanation from the applicant regarding the grade variation and review any supporting documentation they provide. Option C. Immediately reject the application due to the perceived inconsistency in academic performance. Option D. Admit the applicant without further inquiry, assuming the variation is due to external factors. The correct answer is B. Request a detailed explanation from the applicant regarding the grade variation and review any supporting documentation they provide. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the applicant's academic record, while strong in some areas, contains a significant discrepancy that requires careful investigation before a final admissions decision can be made. The university entrance exam regulations for Anhui University of Science and Technology emphasize fairness, accuracy, and adherence to established admission criteria. A hasty decision based on incomplete or potentially misleading information could lead to an unfair outcome for the applicant and compromise the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the applicant's academic transcripts and a direct, professional inquiry to the applicant regarding the discrepancy. This aligns with the university's commitment to a holistic and evidence-based admissions process. Specifically, the regulations likely mandate that all admissions decisions be supported by verifiable documentation, and that applicants be given an opportunity to clarify any ambiguities in their submitted materials. This approach ensures transparency and fairness, upholding the ethical principle of providing a just evaluation. An incorrect approach would be to immediately reject the applicant based solely on the observed discrepancy, without further investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of due process and could penalize an applicant for an error that might be explainable or rectifiable. Another incorrect approach would be to admit the applicant without addressing the discrepancy, which could compromise the accuracy of academic records and potentially set a precedent for overlooking significant academic inconsistencies. Finally, making assumptions about the applicant's intent or academic capabilities without seeking clarification is unprofessional and violates the ethical obligation to treat all applicants with respect and impartiality. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Identifying the discrepancy and its potential implications. 2. Consulting relevant university admission policies and guidelines. 3. Formulating a clear, objective request for clarification from the applicant. 4. Evaluating the applicant's response against the established criteria. 5. Making a final decision based on all available, verified information. Question 11. Assessment of the most appropriate response by an invigilator at the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance examination, when a fellow invigilator reports observing a candidate discreetly using a mobile phone for a brief period during the test. Option A. Confront the candidate directly in front of other students, demand the phone, and issue a verbal warning for potential cheating. Option B. Discreetly observe the candidate for the remainder of the examination to gather more evidence and then report the full observation to the chief invigilator at the end of the session. Option C. Assume the phone was used for legitimate reasons, such as checking the time, and take no immediate action, relying on the candidate's integrity. Option D. Immediately confiscate the candidate's phone and exam paper, and escort the candidate out of the examination hall, pending further investigation by the examination committee. The correct answer is D. Immediately confiscate the candidate's phone and exam paper, and escort the candidate out of the examination hall pending further investigation by the examination committee. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring academic integrity and fairness during a high-stakes university entrance examination. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to maintain a secure and equitable testing environment with the ethical obligation to address potential irregularities without causing undue distress or compromising the validity of the examination process for all candidates. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between minor, unintentional deviations and deliberate attempts to gain an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation of any reported irregularities. This means gathering all relevant information, including witness statements, photographic or video evidence, and any physical artifacts. The process should then involve a fair and impartial review of this evidence, adhering strictly to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's established examination regulations and disciplinary procedures. This ensures that any actions taken are consistent, transparent, and justifiable, upholding the principles of fairness and academic honesty mandated by the university's internal guidelines and relevant national educational policies concerning examination conduct. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify a candidate based on a single, uncorroborated report without a thorough investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of due process and could lead to a wrongful accusation, causing significant harm to the student's academic future and damaging the university's reputation for fairness. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the reported irregularity altogether, as this undermines the integrity of the examination process and signals a lack of commitment to academic honesty, potentially encouraging future misconduct. Furthermore, haphazard or biased investigation, driven by personal assumptions rather than objective evidence, violates ethical standards and the university's own procedural requirements. Professionals in examination administration should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes evidence, fairness, and adherence to established protocols. This involves 1. Objective fact-finding, diligently collecting all available evidence related to the alleged irregularity. 2. Impartial assessment, evaluating the evidence against the university's examination regulations and relevant national educational guidelines. 3. Due process, providing the accused candidate with an opportunity to respond to the allegations and present their case. 4. Proportionality, ensuring that any disciplinary action taken is commensurate with the severity of the proven offense. 5. Documentation, maintaining detailed records of the entire process, from the initial report to the final decision. Question 12. Which approach would be most appropriate for a prospective student preparing for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam to ensure full compliance with examination regulations regarding the use of external resources? Option A. Thoroughly review the official Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations, and if any doubts persist, seek direct clarification from the university's admissions office. Option B. Assume that standard national examination rules regarding resource usage are applicable, as most universities follow similar guidelines. Option C. Rely on advice and common practices shared by students who have previously taken the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam in online forums. Option D. Interpret the examination rules in a manner that allows for the maximum possible use of external aids that are not explicitly forbidden. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly review the official Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations, and if any doubts persist, seek direct clarification from the university's admissions office. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to Anhui University of Science and Technology, as they must navigate the university's specific entrance examination regulation. The core difficulty lies in accurately interpreting and applying the stipulated examination rules, particularly concerning the permissible use of external resources during the test. Misunderstanding or misapplying these rules can lead to disqualification, highlighting the need for meticulous attention to detail and a proactive approach to clarification. The correct approach involves carefully reviewing the official Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations provided by the university. This includes identifying any explicit statements or guidelines regarding the use of electronic devices, reference materials, or any form of external assistance during the examination. If any ambiguity exists, the most prudent step is to seek direct clarification from the university's admissions office or the examination administration department. This proactive communication ensures that the student's understanding aligns precisely with the institution's requirements, thereby preventing potential violations. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the principle of academic integrity, which is paramount in university admissions. It demonstrates respect for the examination process and the university's authority. An incorrect approach would be to assume that general examination rules apply, without consulting the specific regulations for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam. This is flawed because each university can have unique rules, and relying on generic knowledge could lead to a violation of specific, stricter guidelines. Such an assumption demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to adhere to the precise requirements of the examination. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on information from unofficial sources, such as forums or past students' anecdotal experiences, without verifying it against the official university documentation. While these sources might offer insights, they are not authoritative and could be outdated or inaccurate. Relying on such information without official confirmation is a significant ethical and regulatory risk, as it prioritizes hearsay over official directives. A third incorrect approach would be to interpret the rules in a way that is most convenient or advantageous to the student, rather than in their most literal and strict sense. This can lead to a subjective interpretation that may not align with the university's intent, potentially resulting in an unintentional breach of regulations. This approach undermines the fairness and impartiality of the examination process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. First, thoroughly understand the specific requirements of the governing body or institution. Second, identify any areas of uncertainty or ambiguity. Third, seek official clarification from the authoritative source. And finally, act strictly in accordance with the confirmed guidelines. This ensures compliance, upholds integrity, and minimizes risk. Question 13. Implementation of a new proctoring protocol for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam requires observers to identify and report any instances of academic dishonesty. During the examination, an observer notices a candidate discreetly using a mobile phone to access notes. What is the most appropriate course of action for the observer? Option A. Discreetly document the observed behavior and report it to the chief invigilator or examination authority as per the established protocol. Option B. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting other candidates and potentially causing a scene. Option C. Discuss the observation with other nearby proctors to confirm the misconduct before taking any action. Option D. Immediately confiscate the phone and dismiss the candidate from the examination hall. The correct answer is D. Immediately confiscate the phone and dismiss the candidate from the examination hall. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the ethical and regulatory principles governing academic integrity within the context of a university entrance examination. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and applying the correct procedures when faced with potential academic misconduct, balancing the need for fairness to all applicants with the imperative to uphold the examination's validity. Careful judgment is required to avoid both overlooking serious breaches and unfairly penalizing minor or unintentional errors. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of reporting suspected misconduct to the appropriate examination authority. This approach is right because it adheres to the established protocols for handling academic dishonesty, as would be expected under the regulatory framework of Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam. Specifically, it ensures that any allegations are investigated impartially by those designated to do so, preserving the integrity of the examination process. This aligns with the university's commitment to academic fairness and the principles of due process for all candidates. An incorrect approach of ignoring the observed behavior is professionally unacceptable because it fails to uphold the principles of academic integrity. This inaction allows potential misconduct to go unaddressed, undermining the fairness of the examination for all other applicants who are adhering to the rules. It also represents a failure to act responsibly as a proctor or observer, which is an implicit duty when overseeing such a critical assessment. Another incorrect approach of directly confronting and disqualifying the applicant on the spot is professionally unacceptable. While the intention might be to immediately stop the misconduct, this bypasses the established procedures for investigation and adjudication. It risks making an incorrect judgment without proper evidence or authority, potentially leading to an unfair outcome for the applicant and creating procedural irregularities that could invalidate the examination process. The university's regulations would likely mandate a formal reporting and review process, not immediate, on-the-spot disciplinary action by an observer. A further incorrect approach of discussing the observation with other applicants is professionally unacceptable. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and can create an atmosphere of suspicion and anxiety among candidates, distracting them from their examination. It also risks spreading unsubstantiated rumors and can be seen as unprofessional conduct by the examination invigilator. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the examination's rules and regulations. When potential misconduct is observed, the professional should 1. Observe and document the specific behavior objectively. 2. Immediately and discreetly report the observation to the designated examination supervisor or authority, following the established reporting channels. 3. Avoid any direct confrontation or intervention that is not explicitly authorized by the examination guidelines. 4. Maintain strict confidentiality regarding the incident and the individuals involved. This systematic approach ensures that academic integrity is maintained while respecting the rights and procedures established by the institution. Question 14. Strategic planning requires Anhui University of Science and Technology to develop new recruitment strategies to meet ambitious enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year. Considering the university's commitment to academic excellence and ethical student recruitment, which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for Chinese higher education institutions? Option A. Implement aggressive digital marketing campaigns featuring testimonials from recent graduates and promising career prospects, with a focus on broad reach to maximize application numbers, even if some program prerequisites are downplayed. Option B. Offer conditional admissions with significantly relaxed entry requirements for a substantial portion of the incoming class, prioritizing quantity over the academic preparedness of the students. Option C. Partner with recruitment agencies that guarantee a specific number of enrolled students, allowing them to set their own recruitment criteria and incentives to attract applicants, regardless of their academic background. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of current recruitment materials and admission processes to ensure they accurately reflect program offerings and student support services, while also analyzing demographic data to identify underserved but qualified student populations for targeted outreach. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of current recruitment materials and admission processes to ensure they accurately reflect program offerings and student support services, while also analyzing demographic data to identify underserved but qualified student populations for targeted outreach. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations and regulatory compliance expected of an academic institution. The pressure to achieve specific enrollment targets, while seemingly a straightforward objective, can lead to ethically compromised decision-making if not approached with strict adherence to established guidelines. Careful judgment is required to ensure that recruitment strategies are both effective and principled, avoiding any practices that could be construed as misleading or exploitative. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of existing recruitment policies and practices, ensuring they align with Anhui University of Science and Technology's stated mission and values, as well as relevant national and provincial educational regulations. This includes a thorough assessment of the target demographics' needs and the university's capacity to meet them, fostering transparency in admissions criteria and program outcomes. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it prioritizes the integrity of the admissions process and the well-being of prospective students. It adheres to the spirit of educational access while upholding academic standards, aligning with the overarching regulatory framework governing higher education in China, which emphasizes fairness, merit, and the provision of quality education. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on aggressive marketing tactics without regard for applicant suitability or program capacity would be ethically flawed. Such an approach risks misrepresenting program outcomes or admission requirements, potentially leading to student dissatisfaction and academic failure, which violates the ethical duty of care owed to prospective students. This also contravenes regulations that mandate accurate information dissemination to applicants. Another incorrect approach that involves lowering admission standards to meet enrollment quotas would undermine the academic rigor of the university. This not only compromises the institution's reputation, but also fails to serve the students who may not be adequately prepared for the academic demands, potentially leading to higher dropout rates and a devaluation of the degrees awarded. This directly conflicts with the principles of academic excellence and merit-based admissions, which are foundational to educational quality and are implicitly or explicitly supported by educational policies. A third incorrect approach that neglects to consider the long-term sustainability of enrollment growth, focusing only on immediate gains, would be professionally irresponsible. This could lead to resource strain, diminished quality of education due to overcrowding, and an inability to provide adequate support services, ultimately harming both the institution and its students. This demonstrates a failure to engage in responsible institutional planning, which is a core expectation for educational leaders. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of proposed strategies against ethical principles and regulatory requirements. This includes seeking input from relevant stakeholders, conducting risk assessments, and prioritizing transparency and fairness. A framework that emphasizes due diligence, ethical reflection, and adherence to established guidelines ensures that strategic decisions are both effective and principled. Question 15. During the evaluation of an applicant's academic background for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam, which approach best aligns with the university's regulatory framework for risk assessment? Option A. Systematically reviewing the applicant's academic history against the documented risk assessment criteria outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations. Option B. Seeking external, informal opinions about the applicant's academic capabilities from individuals not officially involved in the entrance exam evaluation process. Option C. Focusing on anecdotal evidence and personal biases regarding the applicant's previous institution to gauge potential academic challenges. Option D. Prioritizing the identification of any minor discrepancy in academic records without considering its relevance to the overall risk assessment as defined by the university's regulations. The correct answer is A. Systematically reviewing the applicant's academic history against the documented risk assessment criteria outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the applicant to balance the university's need for comprehensive risk assessment with the ethical obligation to ensure fairness and avoid bias in the evaluation process. The pressure to identify potential risks associated with an applicant's academic background, especially in a competitive entrance exam context, can lead to overzealous scrutiny or the application of subjective criteria. Adhering strictly to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's established entrance exam guidelines is paramount to maintaining the integrity of the selection process and upholding principles of equal opportunity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves systematically reviewing the applicant's academic history against the documented risk assessment criteria outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations. This approach is right because it ensures that the risk assessment is objective, consistent, and based on predefined parameters, thereby minimizing the possibility of arbitrary decisions or discrimination. It aligns with the regulatory framework by focusing on verifiable academic performance and potential academic challenges as stipulated by the university's assessment guidelines. This systematic review ensures that any identified risks are directly relevant to the applicant's suitability for the program and are assessed in a manner that respects the applicant's rights. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that focuses on anecdotal evidence or personal biases regarding the applicant's previous institution would be an ethical and regulatory failure. This is because it deviates from the established, objective criteria set by the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam guidelines, introducing subjectivity and the potential for unfair judgment. Such an approach risks discriminating against applicants based on factors not explicitly defined as risk indicators within the university's framework. An approach that prioritizes identifying any minor discrepancy in academic records without considering its relevance to the overall risk assessment, as defined by the university's regulations, is also a failure. This could lead to an applicant being unfairly penalized for insignificant issues, failing to adhere to the spirit of a balanced risk assessment that considers the broader academic profile. It overlooks the requirement for a nuanced evaluation, as per the exam's guidelines. An approach that involves seeking external, informal opinions about the applicant's academic capabilities from individuals not officially involved in the entrance exam evaluation process is a significant breach of confidentiality and procedural integrity. This bypasses the established channels for assessment and introduces unverified information, undermining the fairness and transparency mandated by the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with evaluating entrance exam applications must adopt a decision-making process rooted in the specific regulatory framework of the institution. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the university's entrance exam guidelines, including all stipulated risk assessment criteria. 2. Applying these criteria objectively and consistently to all applicants. 3. Documenting the assessment process and the rationale behind any identified risks. 4. Prioritizing fairness, transparency, and equal opportunity throughout the evaluation. 5. Seeking clarification from official sources within the university if any aspect of the guidelines is unclear. Question 16. The control framework reveals that the Anhui University of Science and Technology Entrance Exam Admissions Committee is tasked with selecting candidates based on a combination of academic merit and adherence to university admission quotas. A senior administrator suggests that to meet the enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year, the committee should consider admitting a certain number of applicants who narrowly miss the passing score on the entrance exam, provided they have strong extracurricular profiles, which approach best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical principles governing the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam. Option A. Strictly adhere to the established passing score for the entrance exam and university admission quotas, admitting only those who meet both criteria, and if quotas are not met, reevaluate the admission criteria for future cycles or explore alternative recruitment strategies. Option B. Prioritize meeting the enrollment targets by admitting a predetermined number of applicants who narrowly miss the passing score but possess strong extracurricular profiles, as suggested by the senior administrator. Option C. Focus on admitting applicants with strong personal recommendations and connections, even if their entrance exam scores are below the threshold, to ensure the enrollment targets are met. Option D. Allow for a degree of flexibility in the passing score for applicants with exceptional extracurricular achievements to fill the remaining quota spots, without formal amendment to the existing admission guidelines. The correct answer is A. Strictly adhere to the established passing score for the entrance exam and university admission quotas, admitting only those who meet both criteria, and if quotas are not met, reevaluate the admission criteria for future cycles or explore alternative recruitment strategies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the pressure to admit a high number of students, potentially leading to compromises in the admissions process. The admissions committee must navigate these competing interests while adhering strictly to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations and guidelines. Careful judgment is required to ensure fairness, transparency, and adherence to established criteria. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective evaluation of all applicants based on the established academic criteria and admission policies of Anhui University of Science and Technology. This includes a thorough review of academic records, entrance examination scores, and any other stipulated requirements. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the principles of meritocracy and equal opportunity, which are fundamental to university admissions. It directly aligns with the regulatory framework of the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam by ensuring that decisions are based on objective, predefined standards, thereby preventing bias and maintaining the integrity of the selection process. An incorrect approach that prioritizes admitting a specific number of students, regardless of their qualifications, would be ethically and regulatorily flawed. This would violate the principle of academic merit and could lead to the admission of underqualified candidates, undermining the academic standards of the university. Such an action would contravene the spirit and letter of the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations, which are designed to select students based on their academic potential. Another incorrect approach that involves favoring applicants with personal connections or recommendations over objective academic performance is also unacceptable. This constitutes a breach of ethical conduct and is likely a violation of the university's admissions policies and the entrance exam's regulatory framework. It introduces bias and unfairness into the process, compromising the integrity of the admissions committee and the university's reputation. A further incorrect approach that involves overlooking minor discrepancies in application documents to meet admission targets would be problematic. While some flexibility might be permissible within defined guidelines, a blanket disregard for documentation requirements can lead to procedural irregularities and potentially admit individuals who have not met the basic application standards, thus violating the established procedures of the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations and admission policies. Professionals must prioritize adherence to these guidelines, ensuring that all decisions are objective, fair, and transparent. When faced with competing pressures, the primary responsibility is to uphold the integrity of the academic selection process. This involves documenting all decisions, seeking clarification from superiors or relevant authorities if ambiguities arise, and maintaining a commitment to ethical conduct throughout the admissions cycle. Question 17. Performance analysis shows that an applicant to Anhui University of Science and Technology has a strong academic record and performed well on the entrance examination, but their parent is a prominent figure within a local government agency that has historically supported the university. The admissions committee is aware of this connection. Which approach best upholds the integrity of the admissions process according to the university's regulatory framework? Option A. The committee should subtly lower the admission threshold for this applicant to ensure their admission, believing it will foster goodwill with the parent agency. Option B. The committee should defer the final decision to the university's president, citing the applicant's influential family background, without a formal review of the applicant's qualifications against the stated criteria. Option C. The committee should consider the applicant's family connections and the potential benefits of a positive relationship with the parent agency when making their admission decision. Option D. The committee should proceed with a thorough and objective evaluation of the applicant based solely on the established academic criteria and entrance examination results, as outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's admission regulations, disregarding any external connections. The correct answer is D. The committee should proceed with a thorough and objective evaluation of the applicant based solely on the established academic criteria and entrance examination results, as outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's admission regulations, disregarding any external connections. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's stated commitment to academic integrity and the potential for undue influence or bias in the admissions process. The admissions committee must navigate this delicate balance, ensuring that decisions are based on merit and adherence to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's established admission regulations, rather than personal relationships or perceived external pressures. Careful judgment is required to uphold the fairness and credibility of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective evaluation of all applicants based solely on the criteria outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology's official admissions guidelines. This includes academic records, entrance examination scores, and any other stipulated requirements. The committee must prioritize adherence to these regulations, ensuring that no applicant receives preferential treatment. This aligns with the fundamental principles of fairness and transparency expected in academic admissions, as implicitly or explicitly mandated by the university's governing policies and the broader regulatory environment for higher education in China, which emphasizes meritocracy and equal opportunity. An incorrect approach that involves considering the applicant's family connections or the perceived influence of external parties would be a direct violation of academic integrity and the university's admission regulations. This introduces bias and undermines the principle of equal opportunity, potentially leading to the admission of less qualified candidates over more deserving ones. Such an action would be ethically unsound and could expose the university to reputational damage and potential scrutiny under educational governance frameworks. Another incorrect approach, that of deferring the decision to a higher authority without a clear procedural basis within the university's regulation, is also problematic. While seeking guidance is sometimes necessary, an abdication of responsibility without following established protocols for exceptional circumstances or appeals would be a failure to adhere to the defined admission process. This could be seen as circumventing due process and could lead to arbitrary decision-making. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the Anhui University of Science and Technology's published admission policies and procedures. When faced with ambiguity or potential conflicts of interest, committee members should consult the official regulations and, if necessary, seek clarification from designated university authorities responsible for admissions oversight, ensuring that any consultation is documented and follows established channels. The ultimate decision must always be justifiable based on the established criteria and regulatory framework. Question 18. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing a new AI-powered proctoring system for the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam could significantly reduce operational costs and potentially deter cheating. However, concerns have been raised about the system's potential for algorithmic bias and its impact on candidate privacy. Considering the university's commitment to fair and equitable admissions, which of the following represents the most responsible and compliant course of action? Option A. Implement the AI proctoring system immediately to realize cost savings and enhance security, trusting the vendor's claims about its fairness and privacy protections. Option B. Conduct a thorough pilot study of the AI proctoring system in a controlled environment, involving independent review of its bias detection capabilities and data handling protocols. Before considering full implementation, Option C. Adopt the AI proctoring system, but implement it with minimal oversight, assuming that any issues will be minor and can be addressed reactively after the exam period. Option D. Reject the AI proctoring system outright due to potential risks, opting to continue with traditional proctoring methods despite their higher costs and perceived lower effectiveness against sophisticated cheating. The correct answer is A. Implement the AI proctoring system immediately to realize cost savings and enhance security, trusting the vendor's claims about its fairness and privacy protections. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a new technology against potential long-term risks and ethical considerations, all within the specific regulatory framework of Anhui University of Science and Technology's entrance exam guidelines. The university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment, as implicitly governed by its entrance exam regulations, means that any decision must prioritize these core values. The correct approach involves a thorough evaluation of the new AI proctoring systems, compliance with Anhui University of Science and Technology's established examination regulations. This includes assessing its ability to maintain exam security, prevent cheating, and ensure a fair testing environment for all candidates, without introducing new biases or compromising data privacy. The regulatory justification lies in adhering to the spirit and letter of the university's examination rules, which are designed to uphold academic standards. Ethically, it aligns with the principle of fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to immediately adopt the AI system solely based on its perceived cost savings and efficiency. This fails to consider the potential for algorithmic bias, which could unfairly disadvantage certain groups of students, thereby violating the university's commitment to equitable assessment. Another incorrect approach is to implement the system without a pilot testing phase or adequate safeguards against technical malfunctions. This disregards the potential for system errors to disrupt the examination process and compromise the validity of the results, which would be a direct contravention of the university's responsibility to conduct reliable entrance exams. A third incorrect approach is to prioritize the technology vendor's assurances over independent verification of the system's security and fairness. This neglects the university's duty of care to its applicants and could lead to reputational damage if the system proves inadequate or discriminatory. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem and objectives, e.g., enhancing exam security while maintaining fairness. This is followed by identifying and evaluating potential solutions, considering their alignment with relevant regulations and ethical principles. A critical step is risk assessment, including potential biases, technical failures, and data privacy concerns. Finally, a decision should be made based on a comprehensive evaluation of the benefits, costs, and risks, with a preference for solutions that demonstrably uphold academic integrity and fairness, as mandated by the Anhui University of Science and Technology's examination framework. Question 19. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire to enhance the university's public image by emphasizing the accessibility and ease of the upcoming Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance examination in promotional materials, which approach best upholds the university's integrity and regulatory expectations. Option A. Develop promotional materials that accurately reflect the challenging nature of the entrance examination, providing realistic statistics on admission rates and the academic preparedness required, while also highlighting the support systems available to students. Option B. Focus promotional efforts on the university's campus facilities and extracurricular activities, largely omitting detailed information about the entrance examination's difficulty or scope. Option C. Create promotional content that strongly emphasizes the perceived ease of the entrance examination, using testimonials from a select few high-scoring students to suggest a low barrier to entry. Option D. Publish a series of articles in local media that frame the entrance examination as a mere formality, designed to gauge basic interest rather than academic aptitude. The correct answer is A. Develop promotional materials that accurately reflect the challenging nature of the entrance examination, providing realistic statistics on admission rates and the academic preparedness required, while also highlighting the support systems available to students. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for positive publicity and the ethical obligation to ensure the accuracy and integrity of information disseminated to prospective students and their families. The entrance exam process is a critical juncture, and any misrepresentation can have long-term consequences for both the institution's reputation and the students' academic futures. Careful judgment is required to balance stakeholder expectations with regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. The correct approach involves prioritizing transparency and factual accuracy in all communications regarding the entrance examination. This means ensuring that any promotional materials or information shared with stakeholders accurately reflect the exam's difficulty, scope, and the university's admission standards. This aligns with the principles of academic integrity and fair practice, which are implicitly expected of educational institutions and are often underpinned by general guidelines on truthful advertising and consumer protection, even if specific Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations are not explicitly detailed here. The ethical imperative is to provide prospective students with the information they need to make informed decisions, free from misleading or exaggerated claims. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on generating positive publicity, without verifying the accuracy of claims about the exam's ease or the success rates of past candidates, would be ethically and potentially regulatorily unsound. This would constitute a misrepresentation, potentially violating principles of fair competition and truthful advertising, which are fundamental to maintaining public trust in educational institutions. Another incorrect approach that involves downplaying the rigor of the examination to attract a larger applicant pool would also be a failure. This misleads applicants about the academic demands of the university, potentially leading to student dissatisfaction and academic struggles later on, and damages the university's credibility. A third incorrect approach that involves selectively highlighting only the most successful past candidates without providing a balanced view of the overall applicant pool and admission statistics would be misleading. This creates an unrealistic expectation for prospective students and fails to provide a comprehensive picture of the competitive nature of the entrance examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough review of all communication materials by an independent party or a designated committee responsible for academic integrity and admissions. This process should verify factual claims against actual data and university policies. Professionals should always err on the side of caution, prioritizing accuracy and transparency over potentially short-term gains in publicity. Adherence to ethical principles of honesty and fairness should guide all communications, ensuring that the university's reputation is built on a foundation of integrity. Question 20. The risk matrix shows that applicant X is flagged as high risk due to a perceived discrepancy in their academic record, but the university's entrance exam guidelines emphasize a holistic review process that considers all submitted documentation and potential for academic success. How should the admissions committee proceed with evaluating applicant X? Option A. Ignore the risk matrix entirely and proceed with the evaluation as if no risk assessment had been performed, focusing only on the applicant's stated academic achievements. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of applicant X's entire application, including any supplementary materials or explanations provided, to assess their overall academic potential and suitability for the program, while also investigating the nature of the high-risk flag to understand its context. Option C. Rely on the high-risk flag as a definitive indicator of unsuitability and seek external opinions to confirm the applicant's lack of potential, without a detailed review of their application. Option D. Immediately reject applicant X's application based solely on the high-risk designation in the matrix, as this indicates a significant issue that cannot be overcome. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of applicant X's entire application, including any supplementary materials or explanations provided, to assess their overall academic potential and suitability for the program, while also investigating the nature of the high-risk flag to understand its context. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to interpret a risk matrix within the specific context of the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam's regulatory framework. The challenge lies in understanding how the university's admission policies, as guided by national educational regulations and university-specific guidelines, translate into actionable decisions based on risk assessment. Applicants must demonstrate not only an understanding of risk, but also the ability to apply it ethically and in compliance with the established examination and admission procedures. Careful judgment is required to avoid bias and ensure fairness in the evaluation process. The correct approach involves prioritizing the applicant's academic potential and suitability for the program, as determined by objective assessment criteria outlined in the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations. This approach aligns with the fundamental principle of merit-based admission, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated on their qualifications and preparedness. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit of national educational policies promoting equitable access to higher education and the university's own commitment to selecting students who can succeed in their chosen fields of study. This involves a holistic review that considers all aspects of the application, not just a single risk factor. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the high-risk designation without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge that risk is often a preliminary indicator and requires contextual understanding. The regulatory framework for university admissions emphasizes a comprehensive evaluation, and a single risk score should not be the sole determinant of an applicant's fate. Such an approach could lead to the rejection of a deserving candidate based on incomplete information, violating principles of fairness and potentially contravening guidelines that encourage consideration of extenuating circumstances or alternative evidence of capability. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the risk matrix entirely, assuming it is irrelevant to the entrance exam process. This is a failure to engage with the established evaluation tools and procedures of the Anhui University of Science and Technology. The university, in conjunction with national educational authorities, has implemented the risk matrix as part of its assessment methodology. Ignoring it demonstrates a lack of diligence and an unwillingness to follow prescribed protocols, which could be seen as a disregard for the examination's integrity and the university's governance. A third incorrect approach would be to allow personal biases or subjective interpretations of risk to influence the decision-making process. The regulatory framework for entrance exams mandates objectivity and impartiality. Introducing personal opinions or stereotypes, even if not explicitly stated, undermines the fairness of the evaluation and can lead to discriminatory outcomes. This directly contravenes ethical guidelines for admissions officers and the overarching principles of equal opportunity in education. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly understand the specific regulatory framework and guidelines governing the Anhui University of Science and Technology entrance exam. Second, analyze the information presented, including risk assessments, within this established framework. Third, apply objective criteria and establish procedures to evaluate all aspects of an applicant's profile. Fourth, seek clarification or further information if ambiguity exists, rather than making assumptions. Finally, ensure that the decision-making process is transparent, fair, and defensible according to the university's policies and national educational standards.